Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming and Miniature video. In today's video, we're going to continue on with our 15mm Napoleonic project update. Alright, in today's update, I'm going to show you the two units that I just recently put together and finished. It would be the 5th and the 6th Lancers from Pyre's division, 2nd division, 2nd Cav division. This is the 5th Lancers. And as you know, if you've been following my channel, you know that one pack of Lancers had the spears upright, and then the other pack had the spears lowered, and that'll be the next regiment I'm showing you. So these guys have that baby blue lapels, trim, collars, and turnbacks. We got our elite company there. We got our standard bearer, officer, musician, and then the rest. And I had to go through and hand paint those pennants. Of course, I hand painted everything, but I mean, there was no like guidelines or anything. I had to kind of eyeball it. Yeah, with the red on the top and the white on the bottom of the pennants. A couple of things I want to point out. These guys, the 5th, they have white, what would it be called? A harness? White equipment? Yeah, so their gloves and their shoulder straps is white. Where this next unit I bring out, the 6th, is not white. Okay, let me bring them up. Alright, now these are the 6th Lancers. You can see that they have the red trim, and they have a camel skin straps for the leather and the gloves. You'll see the lowered lances. These lances were a little bit easier because the lances are the pennants are pretty straightforward, as opposed to those guys which had the draping pennants. This regiment has a couple of special things about it. First of all the right arms had to be glued on separately, all those lances. But the officer is wearing red trousers, and the drummer, the musician, has a red jacket with green trim. Yeah, looking good. You'll notice that there are stones mixed in with some of the bases. I didn't do all the bases that way. But let's go ahead and compare the two units side by side, and we'll talk about the flocking. Alright, so now I tried a technique a little bit different on these guys, where I have a variety of different flocks, as you probably already know. But one of these, I think it's the 5th, I put primarily Spring Meadow as the primary flock. And on the lowered lances, the primary flock was just Meadow. It's not called Spring Meadow, it's just called Meadow. But they're very close. They're very similar, as you can tell. But I only have stones mixed in with my Spring Meadow flock. I could always go get some of my loose stones and actually mix them in with the Meadow as well. But at the time when I was putting it on, I said, okay, it's not already pre-mixed. So what I would do is I would pinch out some of the stones and sprinkle them on the unit I was planning on doing just meadow. But what wound up happening, which is a good thing, what wound up happening was when I sprinkled the stones, some of the flock went with it. So there is a little bit of a two-tone flock. It's so subtle you really can't see it. There's gaps in the flocking where I didn't put any glue. Did that on purpose. Just like well, you can't see it all on the camera, but just like that guy right there. And so there's spots where there is no grass, like on the back of that one. And then I sprinkled stones on all the glue, but it brought along with it spring meadow. So what I wound up doing is actually grabbing spring meadow and kind of sprinkling it around all of the bases. And then I took some of the meadow, which is a darker color, but it's not as dark as that WSS stuff that I've got. And I sprinkled it around, and then I decided I was just going to go with my primary colors. I go with the spring meadow and the meadow. So what wound up happening was they both basically got a 50%, approximately a 50% of each color on there, but they're not in distinct areas. So it's almost like I took the two flocks and mixed them in the same container. Because when I sprinkled it on there, I was trying to get them separated. But because the colors are so close, it's just hard to tell. It's not drastic enough to really make a difference. But I think they came out really well. I like the stonework on some of these bases, and then the flock on all the bases. This is these are 15 millimeter Old Glory Lancers, 30 millimeter Litco bases, and that's a 2 millimeter flock, static grass flock. These are GMB flags, and yeah, and I've got a handful of Lancers left over. I probably have about eight Lancers left over, but there's going to be, out of those 8, there's going to be 2 musicians, 2 officers, 2 standard bearers. So it's really just heavy on the command stands. Like I could reproduce the front rank of both of these groups with what I've got left over in the bag. So if I ever needed to make a 3rd battalion, I probably could, but I'm not in a hurry to do that. Okay, now while this is spinning, I want to bring up something on the screen. All right, this is my Quatre Bras unit rosters, and I just want to show you that I just finished these guys right here, which is the 5th and 6th Lancers. I already did the 1st and 6th Chasseurs. You saw that a couple of days ago. So this division is finished minus the artillery right here. I need to do a couple of artillery, but so I'm thinking of jumping over here now that I've got this done. I'm thinking of jumping over here and maybe finishing these 2 battalions, or maybe these 3 battalions or something, just to get these brigades close to being finished, or even these 2, or maybe these 2 cavalry units. I'm not sure. But my point is, this is going to be the last update for at least a week, because this Friday I'm going down to Nashville for NashCon. And NashCon is a historical miniature gaming society convention, but there's also some sci-fi and fantasy in there thrown in as well. But it's mostly like Warhammer, Bolt Action, Hail Caesar, Blood Red Skies, Aerodrome, there's some Johnny Reb, some Fire and Fury. I didn't see any Napoleonics, very much Napoleonics. I did see one or two games of Napoleonics, and I didn't see very many ancient battles this year, but I personally plan to run Quatre Bras in 15 millimeter using my rules next year, so that's not going to be a problem. All right, so I also used a different technique on painting both of these horses. To be honest, I don't think I like the technique that I used. The black horses, I think I like that technique really well. What I used was a paint thinner, and I created my own, what would you call it, a speed paint, where I just painted the horses with the black. It's actually black, but what it did was it came out more of a gray look, but with highlights. I really like that look. The drummer, I keep calling him a drummer, but he's a musician. I did paint him with a little bit lighter gray. Now on this other battalion, air quotes, the officer and the standard, I used that black technique, and then the gray for the drummer, no, the musician. But the rest of them, I thought I would do the same technique with a brown, similarly to what I did with the black, but it didn't come out right? Because normally what I do with my horses is I'll paint them a burnt umber, which is almost like a black brown. It's really dark. And then I will gradually blend outward from the dark. I'll get lighter and lighter and lighter on the way out, which does take more paint strokes, but it has a really good look to it. I'm not pleased with this look. I am pleased with the last 4 battalions. That's these 2 and the other 2 cav. I've started using a strong tone, which is a really dark, very dark wash. But instead of just applying it directly, I've been applying a 4 to 1. Yeah, 4 to 1. Okay, 4 to 1 Liquitex Flow Aid additive, right? This Flow Aid, it's like $5, right? And you get like a ton. What is this? 4 ounces. This is a pretty big bottle. You can see how much I've used. It's just barely at the top of the paper right there. See that? See where it's water? Okay. And the reason, so I've only used a few drops. I've had this for over a year now. The reason why that is you mix this 1 to 20 in water, right? So 1 drop of this with 20 drops of water makes a solution, right? And I have a dropper that I use to create that solution. Now, I don't do 20 to 1. I only do 10 to 1, which means there's like twice as much of this in my solution. Okay, so far so good. But then when I put the drops in my palette for the wash, I'll put like 40 drops of wash in my palette, and then I'll go in and I'll put 10 drops of this solution in there, stirred up, and it goes on great. I mean, you guys can see, you can see for yourself. It doesn't really ruin any of the paint jobs. I've noticed it flows really well. It does still give some really dark colors in the deep recesses, like their bedroll or the straps or their gloves, the helmet. You can actually see how dark the wash comes out. And in person, it looks really good. On camera, you got bright lights. It might not be that great. One thing I will say is I paint these with Hunter's Green, right, from Folk Art. Folk Art Hunter Green. I know you're like, Mr. Everything, you actually use Folk Art? I do. Where's the color? Where's the color? Where's the color? Oh, right there. Vert Chasseur. Hey, you know that's right. Chasseur is Hunter, so Green Hunter. This is Hunter Green. It's perfect color, and then a wash does make it seem a little dark. So then I'll go in with I'll highlight. I know this is crazy. I'm highlighting with a P3 formula. Iosian Green, which is a little bit brighter than Hunter's Green, but it's great on the highlights. Every one of these has a Iosian Green highlight. So the uniforms, you see, you might be able to see how it brings out the highlights. Oh, it just looks good. I'm happy. And I didn't realize, my mind doesn't work this way, but all the Chasseurs and all the Lancers are Hunter Green. so I was able to get all of them done. Now, I don't remember, are the Dragoons the Hunter's Green as well? And then I've got Guard Chasseurs, Guard Lancers, but like 95th Rifles, it's going to be the same way. Hunter's Green, highlight with Ocean Green. Use the, I'm not using dark tone, because that's kind of like a black wash. I'm using strong tone, which is kind of like a black brown. It's like, it's not overbearing. All right, guys. I have to end the video here because I have to get ready for our live stream, which starts in an hour. And so you'll probably I'll edit and upload this video after the live stream. So go back in time and watch the live stream where I'm going to be packing. Really, it's going to be a pack fest for the convention. All right, I'll see you then.